So I am the VP of Academic Affairs. I didn't introduce myself at Elevate. And so I'm actually an Elevate graduate as well. And I went through the program when I left teaching to go back into sales, have 20 years of sales experience, but didn't have all the tech stuff. Went to work for startups. I'm a startup gal. I'm not a corporate gal. I love startups. I grew up in Silicon Valley. And so I don't know, it's in my blood. Both my parents were entrepreneurs. My dad was a union plumber who moved into mechanical contracting. My mom was a hairdresser and had salons and was always selling. And you got to network and give out your business card, which now our business card is LinkedIn. So that's the perfect segue. So Matt, tell us about yourself and what you do at LinkedIn, how long you've been there, and
Yeah, I'll kick off with like my journey. So I went to college, I studied finance. The whole time I was anticipating on working with my dad, who's a financial advisor. Didn't really go to internships. I was a horrible student. And then worked with my dad for about a week and realized we could not work together. We had the relationship where I kind of like bossed him around a lot. And it just was unhealthy father-son friction in a very good way, because it led me to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I honestly had no idea. I was totally lost and didn't really have much credibility because I didn't have many internships or experience. So I met an individual who was building a startup in New York City in the West Village. And he said, I'll hire you as an intern. And I convinced him to hire me as an intern. This is an individual I met at a bar. And the next day I told my dad, I said, I'm moving to New York City. He said, you're moving to New York City. He goes, you don't have any money to do so. And so I had a car, I liquidated it. I moved into Manhattan and started this internship, played various roles, landed on sales, gave me the most energy. I loved like the hype of taking a call and trying to convert it from just like a conversation to a meeting with one of our CEOs at the time, because we had a very small organization. And so scrappy startups, you play a lot of different roles. And then from there, I joined various tech startups, some as small as only having between 5 to 50 people, and then others that were a little bit more larger that I call high growth, which had 500 employees. And then found my way to LinkedIn. And actually, when they were recruiting me, I told them, hey, I really wasn't interested. And then saw the office, the culture, and the energy, and landed a job there as an individual contributor that I was selling their software to what they call their enterprise segment, which means fairly big customers who are resistant to buying technology, at least the ones within LinkedIn, because they already had so much account penetration with their other accounts. And then I loved the SDR team. I loved coaching, motivating, challenging, teaching them as we were working together as cross-functional partners. And that experience led me into being a sales development manager. And then I started to manage a small group of managers. And now I look after for LinkedIn Sales Solutions. So if you're familiar with LinkedIn Sales Navigator or LinkedIn Sales Insights products, my team is responsible for driving the growth of those within North America. And so that's my story, and really stoked to be here and share some insights. And I guess ultimately, like my takeaway is that if you all can gain some sort of value from here that you can put into action at the conclusion, I would say that's a win for all of us.
Absolutely. Well, we are very excited to have you. And yeah, LinkedIn is a big part of our curriculum. I am like talking about LinkedIn daily with them and how to use it better and of all of that stuff. So, so what has it been like working for LinkedIn?
Yeah, great question. I would say I first got addicted to it because it has this amazing culture around diversity and collaboration. It wasn't something that I really experienced when I was working in startups. And that was one thing that just it really challenged me to grow and seek to understand. But I'd say when I think of LinkedIn today, what it's like working there is it's definitely competitive. You realize that LinkedIn is always trying to find and identify world-class talent. And I feel like I always have to show up every day being like the best version of myself and inspiring others to be the same. And I'd say that's the one thing that I love about LinkedIn is not only that it's like competitive, but there's also really amazing, talented people. And so I definitely have had like the pleasure of being like very resourceful and connecting with a bunch of individuals who are way smarter than me, who have solved challenges that I experience and gaining like insight and perspective from them. And that's what's motivated me to stay here. And I've been with the company so far for nearly 5 years, and it still feels slightly like the honeymoon stage where there's always something new, there's always something competitive, and it just keeps the energy flowing.
That's amazing. That sounds like an amazing culture. So you already told us how you got into tech sales. Do you have any like tips or any advice for these folks as they're moving in and starting their career in tech sales?
Yeah, I would say like there's like a couple things. I think one is like your like brand and like brand building is important. And I think that ultimately like starts at your LinkedIn profile. Like if there's a candidate applying for a position within one of my manager's teams, the first thing that they're going to look at is like their LinkedIn profile. And so I think that's something that needs to stand out, where you have a picture that's you, dressed somewhat professional, tailored towards the industry that you're trying to break into. So tech is fairly casual. I wear t-shirts every day. It represents, of course, you and who you are. I think having a headline on there that talks about like the outcome of what you do, and not that you're just interested in working, but what you can offer like an organization. And then I think addition to that, some other tips around like profiling is like having some recommendations on your LinkedIn profile of, folks that you've helped or added value to, highlighting some of your like skills or expertise. And ultimately, like, what are your differentiators that you can bring to whatever that future organization is? And so I think that's one, is just having a strong LinkedIn presence. I think number two is networking. So understanding like the role and the skills required. And so if you have the desire in the future to play a role at certain organizations, I would try to identify who are the sales development professionals there and reach out to them. I'm talking about the individual contributors and asking them, what do you like about the role? What do you not? What gives you energy? What depletes your energy? What are some of the skills? What is the culture like? And so I would actually get into networking mode after I've built like my LinkedIn profile. And then lastly is actually like building the skills. And I know that within Elevate, you have like a great opportunity to gain access to, different skills and experiences, but thinking through like the technical knowledge that's required. And you could see that there's like plenty of different technologies that organizations use to enable sales development professionals to be as like productive and efficient as possible. Exercising and learning about like communication skills, like how do you speak to executives? How do you speak to certain level buyers so you can get more proficient in that? And then also like learning more about what it's like to have a results oriented mindset, because sales, it's a numbers game, but it's truly a skills game. But you need to understand the numbers to help you get to your target. And so if you can develop that results oriented mindset where you can take an objective or a goal and break that down into weekly or daily, like bite-sized objectives, that will help you be more armed for like the interview and help you capitalize on attacking your quota once you land that position.
Awesome. Very helpful. Any particular, like, what about the hashtags on their description? Do you, yes, those are a good thing, or?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think recruiters do sometimes search for those things, like specific keywords like sales development representative. And then you can look at different like job postings and see what are the keywords within there that maybe you want to incorporate on your LinkedIn profile. So when people are searching for them, you can make sure that your like profile is tailored. At the end of the day, I think that if you're going to like look for an opportunity, you almost have to be in like hunter mindset and not only like apply for those roles, but most importantly, I think talking to people in the organization and trying to network. I can't tell you how many people have reached out and creatively networked with me, because if you can imagine, I do get like a fair amount of outreach of people interested in working at LinkedIn, but there has been individuals who have taken just like a value driven approach and have enabled me to have a conversation with them, and then I'm able to direct them to individuals, and they ended up getting jobs here. And so I'm seeing that like the individuals that have that hunter mindset will have the highest likelihood of getting the job, because you're gaining insights about the organization and skills that are required that really aren't available online.
Thank you. I did not pay Matt to say that, you guys. I did not pay him to say that.
Very true.
So it's, yes, you're right in line with my preaching for sure. So this is a really, really important question. And I go over this with, we call them climbers. We don't call them students. How do you organize your day? You know, and maybe even going back a little bit as that first SDR role, like, you know, how do you organize it? And is organization important?
Organization is so important. I feel like there's always things going on. There are always requests being made. Zooming back to my days as like a sales development representative, I spent a lot of time blocking. And I think time blocking is so instrumental for success. But I think the most important piece is when you are organizing your day around time blocking is ensuring that you are allocating the right amount of time for each activity. So for example, when you are just starting out in your role or whatever you want to do, based on the activity that you've created a time block for, time yourself to make sure that you actually have an accurate representation of what that time block should be to ensure you have enough time to complete it. And not only that, for the activities that you want to accomplish on a weekly basis should all be in your calendar, because if it's not in your calendar, it's 100% not happening. But on top of that, we're all humans. We're not robots, right? And we need to take breaks. We need to have lunch. And so one thing that I adopted early on in my career was to make sure that in between activities, I'm taking breaks and that I have a lunch. And those things are non-negotiables, whether I need to meditate, take a walk around my neighborhood, talk to someone, go, take a couple scrolls on Instagram, whatever the case may be, as well as like feed myself, I think are such priorities, because if you do not create space for yourself, there's no way that you can take care of customers and take care of others, especially at your full potential. And so I think that those are really important. And then at the end of the week, I think it's important to also look back and assess where you spent your time and where you had, good energy. There are some activities, like maybe it's like updating a customer relationship management system like HubSpot, and that's kind of draining for you. And maybe you don't want to end your day with that because it's like really hard and maybe unattractive. Maybe the move is to start your day with that. And so I would start to take time blocks, measure the time required, and then also reposition things based on like myself and what I know about myself and where I have energy throughout the day. And that's what helped me at least most.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, what do you do on the personal side? Because we all know sales is a big, like, can be like a mental drain, and there's, like strategy and planning, and like you said, time blocking and meetings and all that stuff. So what do you do to take care of Matt? Like, mind, body, soul, all that good stuff. Like, is that important, especially working from home now?
So that's like always been important to me. I'd say that I actually prioritize those things over work. They're so important to me. And I'm like the rare individual who is in the sauna, the cold plunge, meditating. I over index in this department. So what I'm sharing with you might be a little bit aggressive. Like my wife thinks I'm like absolutely nuts. And when I find something new, I get addicted to it fast. But I would say like the things that I always try to do is like I try to exercise every day. I try to eat healthy, and I try to exercise before I go into the office because for me, it's just something that's so important. And if I didn't get my exercise, I would have like the absolute worst day. So I prioritize my day with that. And then I like to take breaks. Like I think it's important to get sun every day. Even if you live in an area where there's not a ton of sun, you can always find like an angle to get outside. And whether it's cold or warm, like, I lived in New York City for 12 years. I would step out of the LinkedIn office and go for a lap around the neighborhood. And I think those things are important because I've always tried to prioritize like myself and my well-being, because I know if I don't do that, I'm never going to be in the headspace to have that conversation with the buyer or to be in the headspace to prospect as productively as possible. And so I found by just taking breaks and scheduling them in are super important. And, things I love to do, like I love to go to the gym. I like to ride bikes. I like to play golf. I do a ton of yoga. And then recently adopted going in the sauna and cold plunge, which are two like amazing things that I do on a daily basis and give me a ton of energy. And I feel like all that stuff enables me to be like resilient and have good energy. Whereas like, I feel like if I didn't do those things, it would be hard. But if you showed me something new that fit the health and wellness category, I would almost have to sometimes say no to it because I know myself and I know how much time I have, and I get addicted to things around that topic very easily.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Now, what do you put in your mind? Like, do you read sales books or personal development books? Like, what does that look like?
So I have read books. Yeah, I've read books in the past. I'm a horrible reader. I'm like really slow at reading things. When I try to like read things to like my wife, she's like, "Give it to me. Let me read it." She's just way better. So I shut down and I was always a horrible student too. So I don't really read much, but I do crave content. I found that like Sales Hacker online has amazing stuff for sales development professionals. Yep. But I like that. I like to like find topics to understand what people are thinking. And then I try to like put it in my own words or like implement those things. And so I find that like short, like articles and things like that gives me energy because I just need like that quick boost of like inspiration to take action. And then I also like podcasts. I listen to like the Gong Revenue Intelligence podcast. I also like a lot of the like the qualification criteria type podcasts. Some of those training programs, like one is called Force Management, and they are a sales training organization that I went through a while back early in my career. They have a podcast and they drop great knowledge, and it's usually like relevant topics. So sometimes I'll listen to those while taking a walk around the neighborhood, or if I'm on an elliptical or a bike, I'll listen to those things and take notes, and that inspires me. But I think the most important thing is that if I am gaining knowledge, whether it's through an individual or one of these like resources, like articles or podcasts, I always like to take notes, and I try to put those notes into my words. And then I try to implement those things if they're applicable to like my day to day. And I find that feeds me energy, and it makes me want to come back and getting, more.
Awesome. That's really great. And what are the key activities that help you reach your KPIs?
So I'm going to go back to like the sales development professionals on my team. I would say number one, and this is like the most important, is partnerships with account executives. So I look after a bunch of different sales development teams, some that are inbound sales development professionals, meaning like our marketing team posts content, people click on those things and fill out forms, and they come into LinkedIn. And then my team is taking those calls and qualifying them and then passing them over to account executives. And then I also lead like an outbound organization. And those are individuals, those are those hunters, right? That are basically working with account executives, getting a list of an accounts, and basically just trying to set up meetings. And I think with those individuals, the AE partnerships are instrumental to success. And I find that my most successful sales development professionals are the ones that have the best relationships. And what I mean by that is they don't look at their account executive partner as somebody who is more senior than them. They look at them as at equal levels. And what they do is they leverage the superpowers of themselves as well as the superpowers of the account executive to make their partnership successful. And so having really effective partnerships, being not afraid to give feedback and set expectations and like really treating them as like almost like one of your customers is so instrumental to being an effective sales development professional. I'd say on top of that, I think the quality of your outreach. So as you think about phone, email, in-mail, I think the quality of that will influence our KPIs. If you're having conversations, you identify the buyer's need and you have like a really, really effective conversation, that's going to help move down the sales funnel. And so those are really instrumental, is like not the quantity, but the effectiveness of each time that you get on the phone or that you craft that personalized message. And then lastly would be, I'd say like the notes required. So in a lot of conversations, sometimes you're giving straight to appointment opportunities, meaning like you've prospected into an account, you landed a meeting with a director, and you're not even talking to them. You're basically just passing it over to an account executive. So you want to make sure that you've outlined the pressures, so the things that are outside that organization's control that are preventing them from being successful, potential objectives that that person has. So what is top of mind for that professional? And then also the challenges that they might experience reaching those objectives. And then how can your solution help? And if you can outline notes like that to the account executive, that will enable them to have a more informed conversation, which will allow that deal to go from, let's say, like maybe a discovery call to further down the pipeline. And so meeting notes are also really important. So to sum that up is account executive partnerships and realizing that you're equals. Number two would be the effectiveness of your outreach and conversations and really anchoring in on like the need for the buyer. And then number three is like teeing up your cross-functional partner. Typically it's an account executive with strong notes, not a lot of notes, but strong notes within brevity, so you can yield high conversion rates on the meetings that you set up for them.
That's awesome. So what I'm hearing in that call, you're not just setting an appointment as an SDR, you're doing a little bit of discovery and asking really good questions to engage that prospect before you move them over to that account executive. Did I get that right?
You nailed it. Like if you're having a call, right, you want to come in informed with some sort of hypothesis of, based on the buyer and the industry that they're in and their title, what are some of the things that you believe that they might be struggling with at the moment? And like, if you're familiar with using like ChatGPT or even Google, these are easy things that you can quickly research to just have some perspective on what's going on in their world. What's your assumption? And then during those calls, you want to validate that. Hey, is that true or is it something else? And then whatever it ends up being, you want to make sure you identify what is the need, what's the value for that individual, like what's going to give that individual energy to go solve it, and then align on some next steps. And ultimately at the highest level, like that's what you want to accomplish in those conversations that will help influence, your quota relief, the organization's KPIs, and ultimately you're getting to help somebody who has a lot of pain and enable them to live a higher quality of life with, whatever solution that you're offering them.
Awesome. And so what is the tech stack that you guys use at LinkedIn?
Yeah, so we got a couple things. One, I try to embrace what I call live what we sell. And we really, really use Sales Navigator to its fullest ability. We're always putting it up in our team meetings when my managers are hosting meetings with their SDRs. We're talking about new applications for it. If we have new features, I try to get myself up to date on those. We try to embody those in all of our conversations. So that's one bucket, is like living what we sell. We also use an email engagement platform called SalesLoft, and we've recently adopted that. Those platforms have been very popular amongst tech organizations. There's a competitor of theirs called Outreach, which is very popular. There's a ton of them, but those are really good to get what I would call dangerous with. And Outreach is amazing. And then and then what else do we have? We have Salesforce, and then we have some just like LinkedIn has its own like technology that we own, like that we develop based on what people are engaging online. But I would say, Sales Navigator, email engagement platform, SalesLoft / Outreach. And then, outside of that, we have Salesforce as like our customer relationship management system. Like you all are using HubSpot. And that's pretty much the gist of it. We keep it like kind of lean. I would say like the most important piece about the tech stack is when you are joining these organizations to really invest and allocate time up front, even though I know you're going to be so eager to hit your quota, but to become world class at using those tools. Because if you allocate the time to really fully understand that platform, it's going to save you so much time. It's going to help you yield dividends. And those are the people that are like the top performers who don't work till all hours of the evening in my organization, are the ones that know how to use the tools to make themselves as efficient as possible so they can do the work, get done, and then do whatever they want to do after. And I couldn't encourage that like anymore, is to know how to use your tech stack and continuously try new things to optimize it.
Yeah, very important. And do you have any tips on what you kind of talked about a little bit about that, but any particular like tips or hacks for them to stand out on LinkedIn? And you kind of alluded to like that building your own personal brand. Like, is that important, and should they be posting daily kind of what they're getting out of Elevate and how they're growing and how their skills are, improving? Is that important?
Yeah, I think it's like any way at the end of the day that you could differentiate yourself from the average. I always try to be better than the average. I'm always like, what does my competition look like, and what are they not doing that I could potentially do? And I'd say in LinkedIn, we talked about it, it's like your LinkedIn could be your business card, it could be like your resume, but it's literally the first thing recruiters do when they go online. And so I highly recommend to just like keep your like LinkedIn profile as a living and breathing asset, and always try to change and modify it. I don't think you have to be like a LinkedIn influencer to land a job, but I do think it's important to be active, whether you are illuminating things that are happening within Elevate, sharing things that you're passionate about. If you learn something from a peer and you got value from it, throw it on LinkedIn. And it doesn't matter how many likes you get or how much engagement, as long as like there's a good value exchange. I think that's important. Are you getting value out of it, or is there somebody potentially else getting value out of it? Like, I think that's a win. So I couldn't encourage that more, is just to like be active, because that's something that people are going to look at. To also set yourself up for success would be to do a lot of networking. I think that goes just such a long way, is that a lot of people apply to companies and they do that like wait and see approach. So like the more people that you can talk to and end those conversations and say, hey, who else should I meet with? You'll be able to connect with a significant amount of people that will help build out your roadmap to your next opportunity. And then I think along the way is like, as long as you're helping others and like adding value, get LinkedIn recommendations. And I think those are important, is to like make the ask, tell the individual what you want a recommendation about, And that will help you build trust and credibility with your next opportunity, because you can show the hiring manager how great you are to work with based on like the experiences that you've had, helping and adding value to others. And so this is something that you all can do with each other. I'm sure there's a lot of like collaboration going on and helping and hand holding and going the extra mile. In exchange, like give that person an unprompted LinkedIn recommendation. Like you'll make their day, you'll give them good energy. And then in addition to that, it will help them, utilize that as an opportunity to, differentiate themselves from, the average player.
That's awesome. And then what do you recommend for your SDRs who are having a tough time on the phone? Like it's just a tough day. It's just rejection. Like, what did you do, or what do you recommend, your managers talk to your SDRs about doing when they've got that going on?
It's like sales is exhausting. And it really is. And there are always so many rejections. And I think we go into the role trying to be perfect. But I realized this early on, because I always tried to be the best in everything. And when I originally like failed, I would beat myself up mentally. And it's just not worth it. Like life is too short. And I think that it's important to celebrate failures and realize like none of us are perfect, but the objective is to be world-class at mastering your craft, I think is so important. And so like the way my team, like when we were in the office together and I was managing like my SDR team, if anytime we had got some rejection or had a bad day or somebody gave us something, we would usually just like, and a lot of it came through like email, we would print it out and then just throw it on a wall and like laugh at it. And I think that created like a little bit of like humility in it. But I think the best way to like look at any sort of challenge in life is look at it as an opportunity to improve and always seek feedback, like ask feedback. A buyer doesn't respond to your outreach. Ask them for feedback on why. If a buyer does not, you're having a conversation with them and they don't want to take the next step, say, hey, I'm new to sales. I aspire to be a sales professional. Do you have any feedback for me to improve? Ask for feedback from your peers. And then I think what's most important is to not only take that feedback, but share it with your manager and action on that feedback. Because if you get feedback is just like an opportunity to get better. And then the most important thing is to be persistent with that feedback and action it, and then celebrate success along the journey. And I'll tell you, like, I still fail to this day. I was trying to get certified for a coaching certificate within LinkedIn. I worked 6 months, thought I was going to nail it. I go to the final presentation and they basically almost gave me like a 0 out of 10. And I was heartbroken. And so I went home and I said, after I like got it all out of my head, I said, who are the best coaches I know? Who are people who I think are 10 out of 10? I shared my feedback. I implemented that feedback. I worked really hard. And then I was the first one within LinkedIn to be able to get this certificate. They made it very challenging to get, but I felt so damn good. And so I think the same thing goes for you. Like if a buyer gives you feedback, your manager gives you feedback, whoever it does, like take it on with a learning mindset and look at this as an opportunity to get better, to be world-class at like what you do. And then you'll realize over time, celebrating all these little wins, you'll look back and you'll be not only amped about your success, but then you'll be able to empower others who are going through that same journey and enable them to navigate feedback and take it on with a positive mindset.
Yeah, that's definitely amazing. When you were early on in your SDR career, did you ever go through and do your own call breakdowns, listen to your calls, and use that to give yourself feedback and improve on that too?
Oh yeah, I'm thinking of this one where I started working at this company, and I think sometimes when you start, it's almost better to not know the product, because then you can ask questions about the buyer and not share all the exciting things about the product, the features and benefits that you're so excited about. So I was studying, I was rehearsing. I wanted to know everything about this product. So I go and I'm talking to a very qualified buyer that took me forever to prospect into. I first get my meeting, and I don't ask any questions to this individual. And I am showing him all these features. He goes, this is the best demo I've ever received. I am leaving that call like I think I'm like the rock star of sales. And then LinkedIn, actually, I failed to mention this. We also have Gong, which is a call recording platform. And we record all of our calls. And I go to listen to that back, and I'm like, I did not ask one damn discovery question. I did not ask anything about that buyer. It was the Matt Flamman show. And guess what? That guy ghosted me. I have never got him to return any of my calls, emails, and it ended up being a waste of my time. And so since then, I've always been grounded on not only asking discovery questions and making sure that, there's a give get and that I'm asking for information, but I'm also showing, some of the amazing things that we can do. But most importantly is that I learned that having visibility of your work is so important. And I think from there, even though I was like so embarrassed, the first thing I did was I shared that to my manager, and she was so happy at the time because she said, thank you for being like honest and giving me this exposure, because now I can help like coach and develop you. If I tried to internalize that or not share it, I would definitely not be where I am today. And so I think it's important to record conversations and listen to them, but then provide your leadership with exposure to your work so they can help you master that one area, and be relentless with that. And even till this day, if there's something I don't know, which like maybe is like a basic qualification for my job, I'll call it out, and my manager will be like, I have no idea how to do this. Here's me trying it. This is what it looks like. Let's have a coaching conversation. And they'll ask me questions, and we'll align on one thing that I can do to take one step forward in that direction. And I'm going to execute that. And then we'll move to the next thing and the next thing. And then 6 months down the line, I've mastered it and I can move on to what's next. And so, yeah, I can't encourage like the importance of that anymore. It's just, it's a big exposure and learning game and implementation.
I love that. And you're still doing that. Like from day
not,
one of sales to now, you're still doing that, learning, growing, and taking feedback and responding to it. That's absolutely.
That's why you got to go in the cold plunge, because it's just so exhausting. You need to make sure you get your mind right and zap yourself a little bit.
I've done that. I had a roommate that was from Germany, and that's something that they do for sure. And so we did that. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yes. Okay. So how do you, you kind of talked a little bit about, because you do your workout and everything, but how do you create balance in working remotely? Like, are you bogged down sometimes? It's like meeting, and I just need to like, I don't know, not meeting for a minute.
Yeah. I'm still working on this one. So what my strategy is today is, so most of my job is I'm on meetings with all different people. And so when I first started working remotely, I was not motivated to. I get energy about like being around people. And so it was super hard for me. And I said, if I want to live this quality of life in this location, like I need to figure out a system, because I knew that living here in Charleston was a long-term thing, and I was not moving back to New York City. I already made a very significant investment in a home and convincing my wife to quit her well-paying job and all sorts of chaos to like get here. And so I knew I needed to figure this out. And so I would say one thing I try to do is I like to wake up early. You don't have to be a morning person to be successful. But for me, I like to go to bed early. I wake up early. I knock out my workout. And that starts out as like, having coffee, hitting the workout, coming back here. I like to spend a little bit of time getting organized. And then I like to start since I get energy from like talking to people, I start my day with a lot of my meetings. And so I have reps who also like to have their one-on-ones in the morning. And so those individuals I'll start my day with. So now I'm like talking to people, I'm getting energy, and then I do some of like my less attractive work. And so that's at least how I help hold myself accountable to like getting my engine moving, is by configuring my day based on where I get energy. And that is by, taking calls. And then I also, at the end of every week, I like to like spend some time, like Friday, I try to keep it lighter on meetings and I like catch up on things. I do my administrative stuff. And then I like to reflect back to see, hey, how could I have made this week more productive? Are there meetings that I could say no to so I could say yes to myself, maybe in a different area? Are there areas where I took meetings just to take a meeting and there wasn't like a ton of value there? Do I want to continue those meetings? So I'm always trying to just pressure test how I use my time. Because what I found by working remotely versus the office is in the office, sometimes I would just hang there and talk to people just to like stay there. And now, since, I'm not being overseen by other individuals within like the sales arena in the office, I'm trying to make sure that each hour I spend is as impactful as possible, and always challenging myself and also challenging others to make sure people have, agendas for that meeting, and making sure that we have success criteria for what that looks like. So I'm not wasting my time. And I think that's most important, because the reason why I moved here was to spend more time outside and like really enjoy my life, which I feel like I wasn't doing a ton of in New York City. And so time management in that fashion is something that I do ruthlessly.
That's awesome. So I'm going to open it up for questions because we've got a little bit less than 15 minutes, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
And we've got a couple questions here already. So you kind of talked about that a little bit, but what time do you usually start your day, like your work day?
I would say somewhere around 9. Sometimes what I'll do is like, I'll go work out, I'll come back, I'll knock out some like emails. We use Microsoft Teams as like our internal communication, similar to a lot of companies use Slack or their customer relationship management system. And I'll knock out those, but I usually try to start around like 8:30. And my goal is to try to finish by 4, but that never happens. Somebody always slips like a little meeting on my calendar. And I try to challenge that meeting. And then I say, well, what's this about? What's my role in it? To make sure that it's actually worth my time. And then sometimes I take them, sometimes I don't. And then I try to enjoy time with my wife. And then at the end of the evening, sometimes I log back on because I'm curious what's going on there. And so I'll sometimes open up a can of worms, but yeah, it's fun.
Excellent. So Norman is asking, so for entry level SDR BDRs, do you have a preference as to whether they kind of start in office and then go to remote, or do you have thoughts around that?
Yeah, I'd say it's based on the person. I don't think remote is for everyone. I think the advantages of being in the office is being around people that are working has always inspired me to work harder. So that's one thing. I think in addition, depending on your learning style, like I had all these learning challenges like growing up, and that's why I did so horrible in school. So for me to like, I need to sometimes be in person to like be able to like consume information or learn how to use technology. And so I find it to be a little bit more helpful because you can like collaborate, you can feel the energy. And so I think those things are valuable, but definitely not required. Like when I was a frontline manager managing sales development professionals, I hired people from all over. And some of those individuals, I've never actually met in person ever. And they have been super successful people. We are, I know them so well, like inside and out, and they've worked remote and have been, wildly successful.
Awesome. And does LinkedIn have other paid offers they focus on besides Premium and Sales Navigator? Or are those like, so, and then are the like developments on the LinkedIn side, are those going more to Sales Navigator moving forward, or kind of where's that headed?
Yeah, so we have like a bunch of different solutions at LinkedIn. We ultimately help companies like hire people better. We help them sell better through Sales Navigator. We help people learn better through LinkedIn Learning. And so we're always, and then we help people identify talent, which is like our big, I'd say like 100-pound gorilla or 1,000-pound gorilla. 100-pound gorilla would be kind of small. Talent through like talent acquisition. And so we have about 4 or 5 solutions that we offer. And then we're always innovating on those and improving them with Sales Navigator. Like one of our most recent innovations is we've released LinkedIn Sales Insights. And when you get a book of business, it helps you prioritize it so you can focus on accounts that will yield you the highest impact. So that's really exciting. And we're always innovating our products. And then in addition to that, we have online solutions, right? Where you can ultimately, if you're an individual and let's say not a company and you just want to buy something for your own personal use, we have online solutions, and we have online solutions like Premium, which you can use to, identify like new job opportunities. We have LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which will help you, accelerate sales. So depending on like what you're looking for and your objective, I feel like we have a lot of solutions just around, creating more economic opportunity for the workforce, and are always investing and optimizing them.
And how do you as a leader at LinkedIn support the SDRs and BDRs move through like what's next for them, like their career path at LinkedIn?
Yeah. So, the first thing we do is like, on day one is we try to like get to know the professionals on our team, both on a business level and on a personal level, and also understand what they want to do. Like one of the questions that we always ask in the interview is like, how will this opportunity, being a BDR at LinkedIn, get to where you want to go next? And we really try to pressure test that, because it's super important for me that somebody who joins my organization really, really, really wants to be in sales. Because if not, the SDR job, BDR job is not easy, and it requires a lot of learning and resilience and dedication. And so I want to make sure that everyone is very, very serious about sales. And if you are serious about sales, during our time together, I want to do something special with like an individual that I'm working with. And depending on what that is and what they're trying to accomplish, maybe it's learning something new, maybe it's getting to the next career. But within my organization, we have a very clear path of being a sales development professional. And if you hit your objectives, not only across being a leader and leveraging and optimizing our existing assets, but performing, then you can move to what's called like a sales development professional 2, or like senior sales development professional. And then from there, once you've proven to be successful across being a leader, leveraging and optimizing our assets and crushing results, then you have the opportunity to be eligible to apply for a field role. And those are very competitive. That's like usually an account executive or relationship manager, where you're competing not only against other sales development professionals internally, but you're also competing against people externally with sometimes sales experience. And so we have proven to be the pipeline generator of LinkedIn. And so I feel, really special having the ability to lead like hundreds of sales development professionals, and then having them, move through the pipeline and be some of the most successful account executives or relationship managers. And that's definitely the beauty of it, and how the flow works at LinkedIn.
It's amazing. If you guys have some other questions, you can raise your hand or put them in the chat and we'll definitely ask him. Alex, what have you got?
Hey, Matt, thanks for coming on here. I saw your post on ChatGPT, and I was just interested, like, do you have any examples of how just like AI has like been helping you in the sales role?
Yeah, I love the question. And I'll tell you, like initially, it wasn't working that well for us. And when it came out, I was like, oh, new technology. I gotta figure this out, brush up on my skills. And like the first thing I like to do is collaborate with my team, my SDRs, my frontline managers, and say, how can we utilize this technology to be more effective and efficient? Let's just have some brainstorming sessions. And so I think the initial shot was like, we weren't, based on the queries we were putting it in, they weren't netting us like a high return. And then we started to get creative. Like we started to do research and find different queries online. And we utilized like Sales Hacker and other things. And we basically just created a doc where everyone was just throwing in queries that they found. Then we started to apply those and remove the ones that weren't effective, add the ones that were. And I think each level of role can use AI to be more effective. I don't think it's going to ever take over the sales development role. Like I think you need to pressure test what the output of what comes out of AI and make sure that it's exactly what you're looking for. Because Sometimes it's been right, sometimes it's been wrong, but I use it in all sorts of scenarios. Like one, I find that when I have to give constructive feedback to someone, I find that putting in the feedback and requesting like the AI ChatGPT to help me give good feedback to an individual, that I will use it for. I've used it to optimize my communication, and my reps have to do it as well. Is like, hey, here's what I want to say, but can you make this more concise and more tailored for the type of buyer in this industry that we're trying to generate? You can use it for also applying. So my wife is a podiatrist. She was starting her own business. She does not want to be a entrepreneur anymore. So I was helping her apply, and I said, give me your resume. Threw it into ChatGPT, helped optimize it. In addition to that, we also did it with a cover letter. So there's tons of applications that you can use, and yeah, couldn't encourage it more to help you save time and increase impact.
That's amazing. Norman.
Hey, can everyone hear and see me?
Yeah, we can't see you, but we can hear you.
Network connectivity. Matt, I don't actually have a question for you. I have 2 minutes before I have to jump into a meeting, but I just wanted to thank you and say how insightful this fireside chat was, or is, because I know you guys are still going on when I jump in. I'm extremely thankful that we had the opportunity to have you here. I'm extremely thankful you gave your time to our community here. I think everyone is gushing. We're probably going to see a bunch of comments in Slack afterwards. This was amazing, etc. So Matt, just thank you again for being a part of the community. I just wanted to be able to jump in and say that before I have to leave.
I really appreciate it, Norman. No, it was an amazing opportunity. It sounds like you have some incredible professionals, and really enjoyed the conversation and all the questions people could ask. And if people have takeaways from this, that's like a major win for me. Is, I want to, be the best I can, and then also inspire others to do the same. And if you can take some of these nuggets and action them, and then be successful as a result of it, like, that's huge.
Yeah, and Norman and I are connected to Matt on LinkedIn, you guys. So if you implement some of the stuff, especially the networking stuff, please share that with us on Basecamp. We want to know, and we'll reach out and share that with Matt, because it does matter. And this is his time that he's giving to us. And I know I wanted to ask one other thing too, Matt. You were talking about networking and reaching out to some SDRs and companies where they want to go. What about reaching out to some of the AEs and saying, what makes a good SDR? What makes a good relationship? Like, do you recommend that they maybe take that route as well?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's like a fantastic approach. I think like the more information that you can gain about the craft that you're pursuing, the better you're going to be armed for it. Because it's like, you don't know what you don't know. And that like feeling of the unknown it's super uncomfortable. And so anytime I like feel that when I'm pursuing like a new challenge, I'm like, geez, I need to talk to people who are actually doing this today. And how would they approach it? What's their experience? And learning as much as possible, and going in with like a learning mindset and being as curious as possible. And you'll be surprised. Like, I've reached out to some like very senior sales leaders when I was, an individual contributor. And those are the people who helped me gain the knowledge that I needed to excel at interviewing and get to where like ultimately I am today. And I still use all the skills that I used as a BDR in terms of being a great communicator to today. And I share that with others. And I think it's super, super important. And to me, it's like an amazing start to such a lucrative sales career where you can make a great amount of money, you can live a great quality of life, and then you get to help people along the way. Like, all the little things that you're doing on a daily basis help lead to outcomes by growing companies and helping other organizations become successful. So it's an amazing path, and you got to challenge yourself and take risks, and big returns will come as a result.
Excellent. Well, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of our ginormous community Elevate heart that you took time and shared. These were great insights, fantastic, and very in line with what I teach as well. And just thank you very much for being willing to spend time with us and share some of these insights. And,
of course.
yeah.
No, it's a great conversation. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I always respond to all the questions. And so while I won't always get to them in a timely manner, I definitely always like respond, and I love hearing from people. So feel free to connect with me. I'm always trying to post and drop sometimes sales insights that my sales development reps experience. So you'll see some of my content out there. And yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation and hope everybody has a fantastic rest of the week.
You as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
All right.
Matt. It was nice to
Take
meet
care,
you.
everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Bye-bye.